first attempt at a Veterans Author Luncheon. We are excited to have you guys here today at the Corona Public Library. My name is Mark Villegas, and I'm the library specialist here at the Corona Public Library. I mainly handle a lot of our outreach programs, but over the last 2.5 years, I've had the pleasure of being in charge of our Veterans Connect at the Library service. We help veterans in the community get them connected to resources and benefits that they may not be accessing, but there is funding available for them. So we have a very dedicated and wonderful group of volunteers that helps us accomplish that goal. Many of them here in the room with us today. Also in the room with us today is our featured author, Mr. Lieutenant Colonel John J. McBrearty, U.S. Army retired. So a little bit about Mr. McBrearty. He served honorably in our nation's military for 32 years. His career spanned the globe, operations in Iraq, Kuwait, Japan, Australia, Mexico, and Thailand. His literary works have been published in many magazines and newspapers, including Sports Illustrated, LA Times, Pop Digest, Stars and Stripes, Orange County Register, Veterans Breakfast Club Magazine, the Military Writers Society of America, and many, many more. To date, John has published over 20 books. He also won first place at the National Veterans Creative Arts Festival for creative writing, which earned him a Veterans Therapeutic Arts Scholarship. So he continues to write, and he actively promotes his books by conducting book signings, appearances, and speaking engagements, much like he is here with us today. He also has a very large social media presence, so if you haven't followed John yet on YouTube, he does produce videos, and he does have many thousands of videos, or thousands of viewers and followers on YouTube. He's also been featured in segments for CBS LA and Sports Central, and upon retirement from public service, John was recognized for his excellence by President Barack Obama. So please join me in giving a big round of applause to our featured author today, Mr. John J. McBrearty.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's funny when I hear the introduction. It's like, who's that guy? Who are they talking about? You know, it's like, because I'm just like kind of a regular guy. You know, cool. So anyway, I start out my story. Actually, you got a good snapshot of my whole story is on YouTube. Those interviews. And that video you saw earlier today came out today, actually. It's in honor of Armed Forces Day, which I'm honored to be here for such an auspicious day. This is, Armed Forces Day honors our active service members, Guard and Reserve, who are, hey, Aaron, I didn't get to say hi to you coming in, or just think, like, he's a VIP guest, Mr. Aaron. Yes, sir. These are my brothers from another writing group, and they're all veterans and combat guys, and we all write together and meet monthly and bi-monthly, and been friends with these guys for years. But anyway, nice to see you, sir. So anyway, back to my story. When thinking about writers, you know, and I don't even have trouble calling myself a writer. I just like to write. I don't consider myself an author or writer. It's something I do. It's like my thing. We like to tell stories. And I meant when I first got here, you know, somebody asked me, he was retired from the Army. And I said, well, man, you're going to get another story coming at you here when you open up that Pandora's box. Because I saw a young lady with a USMC on her hat. And I said, I started out there, enlisted USMC, Parris Island, South Carolina, 3rd Battalion, well, it's URA, excuse me. So anyway, that's how I started. And I went, did enlisted reserve for a couple years, and I was going to college, and then I got commissioned officer of Marines. Did my active duty with the Marine Corps as a lieutenant, you know, and got off active duty. Here's another story, okay? So I had a filmmaking degree. Okay, communications, yeah. You know, that is, you know, 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee, you know, I mean, making it in that business, good luck. Well, anyway, so I had my Screen Actors Guild card, and if you look at my videos, you'll find out why. When I was very young, I had a lucky break and got in a movie, but it was a military movie too. And I ended up becoming the technical advisor for that, and probably stuff you don't even know about. I don't really talk about it too much because it's like a different life. But so I got out of the Marine Corps, 29 pounds, had a little baby, you know, the three of us, you know, my wife, me, and my baby. And so I said, well, I got my actor's card. Let me try to go to Hollywood, see if I can get an agent and get a movie. And I knew a couple celebrities, and I did. So I did get an agent, and my first audition, this is a true story, it's in my autobiography, which is to be released soon, called My Military Life. And that, my first audition, I kid you not, was for a first lieutenant, U.S. Marine Corps. I couldn't make this up. 2 weeks before, I had left 29 pounds as a first lieutenant, U.S. Marine Corps. I still had the high and tight from active duty, okay? So I go in there, I do my reading, and I could tell they maybe were overly enthused. I mean, I definitely looked the part, because, you know, Marines, we were in shape. You know, back then I don't know how much I was benching, but it was way over 300 pounds. I mean, I was working out, I was a maniac. 300 PFT, you know, back in the day, not today. Anyway, I didn't get the part. I was a first lieutenant USMC. And so my first experience in Hollywood was, I didn't get a part. They said I wasn't right for the part. So any Hollywood aspirations went out the window at that time, and I went in a different direction. So I was Marine Corps Reserve, and I was a captain, Marine Corps Reserve. Desert Storm came. I got called up 1 day of duty. I went in there, I'm all ready to go. I'm packing my bags. They said, we don't need you. Thank you. I was there 1 day. Then after the war ended, I got a discharge notice. It was in the 90s. It was like I was part of the reduction in force, RIF. So there I was fully trained, educated, Marine Corps captain, reserve, had, you know, and I'm out in the cold. But that's what, you know, it's the Marine Corps. Back then, that's what the military did. And so a couple of years, I just floundered around civilian business. Long story short, the Army came knocking at my door, Army National Guard, and they said, "Yeah, well, you have a good credit score. You're not in trouble. You haven't been arrested. So yeah, we got a job for you." And so, well, you got that shiny thing on your chest. You've been you're jump qualified. I said, "Yeah, I've been to airborne school. Yeah, you know." They called me a 5 jump chump because the minimum in jump school is 5 jumps. You get your wings and you're on your way. And I was so scared out of my life from high heights. That was it for me. I got no more airborne. I went Marine Corps and went on the ground. But they said, yeah, well, I said, well, you know, my roommate in college was Special Forces, and we were always competing and butting heads and competing, and it was who's gonna outdo the other, the Marine or the Special Forces guy. So we were always going at it, you know. And he was a stud. Let me tell you, he was. That's a whole another topic of discussion where his career went. But he was very successful in special ops. So I said, yeah, I'd like to do that special ops thing. You know, the whole thing, like in the 90s, about wearing an Army uniform as a Marine. I'm, you know, still till this day, like, I don't know. But I got over that hurdle. It took about 2 years to get in. Honest to goodness, 2 years to get in an organization. Are you kidding me? So right there is kind of a red flag, like this with this organization. Like, how can it take? Anyway, I get in. They said, okay, we want you to come in. We're going to swear you in. You're going to send you off to training. And I said, okay, cool. So they bring me in. They say, raise your right hand, Sergeant McBrearty. And I said, wait a minute. I said, time out. I said, captain. I was a captain. They said, no, you're going Special Forces. You're a sergeant, man. We ain't got no captain slots. And I said, forget it. I said, I'm a captain. Put me in anything. So they put me in the infantry, cavalry, infantry, and the rest is kind of history. I ended up going full-time. I was in the Active Guard Reserve program, did a full-time active duty career 32 years later, and here I am. So some of the videos alluded to, when I got off active duty, I had some medical issues from, they call it the burn pit stuff from Iraq. It's kind of like our generation's Agent Orange. So I had some issues medically, and I couldn't really work. And so I wasn't really sure what I was going to do for myself. I mean, you're going full-time travel, this, that. I literally always had a bag packed in the back of my pickup truck. I always had an overnight bag because, like, I was always on the go. And so I gravitated to the VA. I didn't, nobody ever said that, hey man, you're a PTSD dude, you're crazy, go there, yeah, go to the VA, get help. I was just a normal dude. And so I just gravitated to the VA. Nobody made me go or, whatever. So, and then I always wanted to play guitar because I played music in the orchestra as a kid growing up, played the trumpet, a little bass, guitar, and I always wanted to play the sixth string. Didn't know how to go about it, so they had this Guitar for Vets program. And I got on a waiting list. And that took about a year, but I got in that. I went through their program, and they give you free lessons, and if you complete the program, they give you a guitar. It's kind of cool. And then they have a continuation group called Strings. And I continued with it. And then after about a year with Strings, I didn't even know it, one of the counselors mentioned he had published a poetry book. And I thought that was really odd because he was like kind of a rugged dude. He was a military policeman and a prison guard, and he was a man's man. I mean, I'm like, what's he doing writing poetry? But anyway, long story short, and it might have been in that video, he introduced me to, helped mentor him to get him published. And that's Andreas Kosak. And he was an adjunct professor at Cal State San Bernardino. And he founded a group called Written by Veterans. And I got introduced to him, and I want to say after that relationship, I got introduced to some of these gentlemen. This is the result, okay? So I wanted to pull up the book stuff. So, I know they have a Q&A at the end, but I'll be honest, if anybody's got a question, I'm okay with it, So I'm going to pull up the first book. These are like all my books, but okay, so this was the first at bat. And so I went to Andreas Kosak, and it's written by veterans, and I told him, I said, my graduate school thesis, okay, was sitting on a shelf and for I don't know, 20 years, and I always wanted to publish it, and that's a result of that's my first at bat. And then, and if you read that, it's American History, a Veteran's Perspective, Essays, Reflections, and Reviews. And one of my mentors, John Cole over here, Marine Corps Infantry, Vietnam Marine, was one of my mentors, and he actually helped me create that title, among many things. And between like John, a few others, and Andreas, they kind of taught me the ropes with this first vehicle, okay? And it was a painstaking process to learn how to write a book in the right format, margins, footnotes, pictures, illustrations, public domain stuff, because I had historical stuff in there, so I had to get public domain. How do you do that? How do you do captions? Andreas taught me all that stuff, and along with help some of the other guys. So then I went to, I don't know if hopefully they're in order. So that led to this one. I got my feet wet on that first book. So then I created this one, and this was a series of essays and letters written home, and some media stuff. I was doing some media press for the battalion we went to Iraq with. And so that's a series of these essays, and a lot of visuals, a lot of pictures. The Marines, we like visuals. The Army says we can understand cartoons, and that's about it. And there's some truth to that. So we're visual, okay? So there's a lot of visuals in all my books, all of them, particularly that one. So, I got a picture of me, the Iraqi kids, and, the golf course thing and all that. So that's all in that book. So I'm learning the process, refining the process with this book. That gets me into the golf book. That was the third one along the chain. And I'm still perfecting the process. And I'm learning, and I'm picking this guy's brain, and Andreas Kosak, hopefully I didn't drive him crazy. I was always asking questions. And this one, okay, how this came to be is, you might have seen on the video clip, I did, when I was in Iraq, it's another whole little story, a sub-story. I built a golf course when I was in Iraq with the soldiers. It was kind of like a sideline project, and that whole that whole project is, it's told in that children's golf book, but I have actually completed, here it is, Combat Golf. I actually completed this book, and I'm working on a traditional publishing deal for this and a couple of my golf books. So that's like my golf story, because I was the XO of a battalion, had 1,000 soldiers, a lot of responsibility. I had kind of a leadership challenge commander. There are 2 leadership books. Yeah. 2 leadership books, because we had an environment that we deployed that lacked so much leadership. Nothing to do with Army values. It was the antithesis of the Army values. So when I created the journal, which is, you know, like this 5-book set, which is coming out right now, you can pre-order them on Amazon, all that. Those leadership books just jumped off these pages because there was so much, you know, like they say, truth is stranger than fiction. It's the truth. So anyway, that tells you about that. So I did this golf course project on the side in my kind of like off-duty time. I was able to get resource through Callaway Golf. I got AstroTurf. I got engineers involved on the base. So I built all this stuff. And then once I had everything in place, I informed the commander and the base commander, oh, by the way, we're going to have a golf program here in the middle of the war zone. So that's kind of my crazy golf story. And so I'm getting back to that 3rd book, children's golf. And so from that experience, you know, I was out there practicing golf occasionally, and the Iraqi kids would come out and they want me to teach them. So I was teaching Iraqi kids, soldiers, and Iraqis the fundamentals of golf. And you know, I wasn't a professional at that time. I was a weekend golfer. I mean, I was good. I was always breaking 100. I was pretty good, but you know, I wasn't any professional caliber. But they treated me like I was. It was literally like being treated like a celebrity. Every time I went out there to chip or practice, which was very rare because I was a busy guy, all the kids would come out. And the teach us. And I was teaching them. And so from that experience, when I came back, I had to do some rehab for medical issues from the deployment. So it took me about 2 years of rehabbing and physical therapy. I got with a golf professional to relearn my swing because I lost all use of my shoulders. It had to build that back up. It was a real hard time. Anyway, so I got with a professional. It took me 2 years. I worked on redoing the swing. Did that. Got my son involved with golf. It was kind of a father-son thing on weekends. And they asked me, hey, can you help out with the kids on the weekends? They have this golf program on Saturdays. And they have volunteers that are like older folks like us that help out, or maybe older high school kids. So I said, sure. And I've been doing it. And it's like about 10 years later, I'm still doing it. So from my experience with the Iraq golf thing to teaching these kids, and I would teach anywhere from 4 to 17-year-olds. So a lot of my students, and I still do it, you know, till this day, every week. And I now do it twice a week. And it's volunteer, you know, work. I won't accept money, but you know, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids are usually they give me the beginners. And I developed a technique on teaching these 6-year-old kids how to swing a golf club properly and hit the ball. And at the beginning in golf, that's your goal. That's what you want to do. And I had success with it. I was amazed. In 1 hour, I could get a kid to hit a ball. That's how this book came to be. And what I did, and in my phone, I had Samsung Notes. I used to text myself. I didn't know any better, but then I found this Samsung Notes, and I take notes all the time. And if you look in my How to Write book, which I don't have here in this one, this is the How to Write. Yeah, in this first one, in there I have examples of my notes I make for myself. I literally at one point probably had 2,000 plus notes to self. And then if I come up with like a quote, I create quotes. And I put them in all my books. I usually start and end with a quote, original quote for me, just to play on words. And from hanging out with these guys long enough, you develop those kind of habits. And I had in the phone my note on 4 steps, children golf. Like that was the note in my phone, and that resulted in the book. And then when this came out, okay, the kids on the back, they were all my students at that time, okay, and they were really good parents. Took them, in for the weekly training, and so I have the kids in the book. And again, this one's in color, a lot of pictures. It's mostly kids doing my 4 steps to the golf swing. Long story short, this kid, from the minute he was born, the parents would come and they would watch the older children. These are his brother and sisters right here, and he was observing as a little baby. Here he's about 1.5 years. Just from observation, he's called what we call address the ball. He's addressing the ball properly, and he's 1.5 years, and nobody ever taught him how to do it. It was strictly from observation. And I took that picture, and that was not staged. That was like, and I wasn't even planning on getting this little guy. I was over here getting pictures with these guys and running around, and this is like my 3rd book, and it was 100 degrees out, and we were at El Prado golf course. And I just said, oh, he's over there with the mom hitting the ball, little baby club. And I just went over and took a couple quick shots. It wasn't even planned. And then there we go. So this book cover seems to work because it was the #1 new release for golf coaching. And it made in the top 10 of sales for golf coaching. Now, there's a difference. I mean, if you say Amazon bestseller, that means you're in the tens of thousands of books selling. But they have categories. And so mine didn't make that sales top number, but it made the category top number, which, so that's why I put Amazon bestseller, because it was for golf coaching. And it is still, it's been out for a couple years, 3 years, 4 years. It's still ranking in the top 150 for golf coaching. So I did create a follow-on books for that. So that gets you to a point where my literary work, where I was rocking and rolling. I kind of learned how to do this, and I was keeping notes the whole time I was going. And I'll tell you about the notes, but I want to show you what that golf book. Okay, so this is the next golf book. This has been in the can. I finished it this last year, and I'm trying for a traditional publishing deal with this one as well. So, and then I have Golf Course 101, and then I have Advanced Golf Techniques, which is more advanced stuff. And if you go through these books, you'll become a very good golfer, okay? You're not going to be a professional, but you're going to be very good if you follow the steps in these books. And so, but anyway, I mentioned I was taking notes the whole time I was doing these books, and this is what the notes turned out to be, a 3-book series on how to do everything I was learning to do with Andreas in that group. Part 1 is for beginners, basically some exercises. I start that book with a John Cole story about John Cole and the rock, and he brings it into the writing group, and he goes, tell us about that rock. We go around that table, everybody's talking about the rock, and I said, well, John, that rock reminds me of Viking warfare. And the guys are like, what? I said, yeah, man, Vikings used the first artillery. They used catapults, and they used rocks as ordnance. I said, so that's my story about the rock. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. I said, as a matter of fact, John, I said, I might put that in one of my books. But that's an example, and I call it the John Cole approach to writing. There's a story there, okay? And guys like him and me, I literally could write about anything. You pick something out in this room, or a person, or and I could make a story, I could write about it. I could turn it into a book or a series or something. It's just kind of the way my brain thinks. It's not that I'm overly talented or smart, it's just how I am, it's just me. I call it the John Cole School of Writing, and I don't want to embarrass him. He's a humble man. But he's done a lot for me and helped me a lot, that group. Him and Andreas and Terry and the rest of them. So that's this book series, and I would implore anybody that's remotely interested in writing and doing this whole thing, these books are where you want to start, okay? The basics are in part 1. Part 2, basically, it kind of tells you about more of the marketing, how to market yourself, and this is for like the self-publishing world. And then, but it can apply for traditional work as well. Because if you apply for a traditional publisher, you need to have as polished a transcript as possible, okay? And then the third one is examples of my work and refines the whole process and puts it all together. So that's how that came in. This was all just from notes. So I would be at home on the computer, and you know, I'd be doing this, that, and the other, and then I would just, in another file, I would have, you know, my notes. And this went on for a couple of years, and that's how this came to be. And then I just sat down and formatted it into a book, and you know, it started out with one big book. It was too big, so I broke it up. So, so that's you know, it's kind of the progression of my literary work. That's where that come. And I mentioned, you know, the leadership books came out of writing the journal. I kept a journal when I was in Iraq. And the reason why I did that is because I was in graduate school going at night while I was working full time. So like every weekend, the Sundays, I was locked in the library and reading, writing, research. I was studying American history. And so I got called, you know, we got mobilized. I was finishing my grad stuff, turned in papers. So I was really in the academic mindset. So I just continued it in the mobilization. And I said, you know, I spent the last year reading about history and American history, wars, and I said, I'm going to document this as a historical reference. And that really is the reason for me keeping a journal, just a historical documentation. And I wrote everything down. It started out, it ended up being about 2,500 pages. But I wrote, you know, we were motorized infantry on 5 different forward operating bases, or FOBs. And, you know, we did base security ops. So we did, you know, we did some of the kicking in door stuff, the exciting stuff, but we also had a lot of downtime in between the exciting stuff. So I wrote everything in between. You know, what we had for breakfast or lunch that day was nothing going on. And, or you know, oh, we got mortared tonight, and it was chaos. So everything in between. So that was 2,500 pages, and then I spent about an entire year editing that down to the Combat Journal book series, and then I'm doing all the other books along the way. Like I said, these leadership books, there's 2 of them, just jumped off the pages. When I did this, I had some colleges want me to do lectures on leadership. So I had this leadership book. So what I did, this was a syllabus for the lectures. And it's got, like in the back, it's got question and answers, like for Professor Proctor that wants to, for their students. And created that. So I'm just moving along, you know, I'm creating these books, and let me see what's next. Okay, those are the how-to books. And then I got to the point where I said, well, maybe I'll put a book together as kind of a resume. And this one, I mean, I'm at the point now I can crank out work pretty quickly and efficiently. This is my achievement. It's a small little book, but I literally wrote this book in 24 hours. It was nonstop. I just started until I finished a day later, and that's like my crowning achievement on speed. I actually finished that book in 24 hours. But I was cutting and pasting from all my previous works. So it wasn't like all created originally. It was already there. I just had to put it all together. So anyway, that's like my little resume piece. And that's like a giveaway book. I think I put it on sale in Amazon for 99 cents. You know, so I have a couple of 99 centers out there, a couple of self-help book for veterans, and they're like pretty inexpensive. That gets me into the kids' books. And I started doing kids' books based on observation. So I got a story. I was going to bring this up in the Q&A, but I already started. I'll start with the kids thing. So, because one of his questions was, hey, how'd you go from wartime memoirs to how to do stuff, to golf, to kids' books, you know? Like, you know, I was in the infantry, you know, it's supposed to be tough and all that. Why are you writing about kids? So, long story short, when I got back from Iraq, when I retired, okay, you know, you're going, like, balls to the wall. You're working, you know, my whole life was like that. And then it's a screeching stop. When I retired, turned into BlackBerry, no government computer, no CAT card, no nothing. The phone, literally, the silence was deafening. I'm sitting in my home, wife's still working as a teacher, my son's in college, and my daughter's already a physician. She's already out working. So I was like so quiet, it was like crazy. Long story short, I really wanted a dog. I wanted, call him a service dog. I wanted a dog, I wanted a companion, real bad. The home front said no, you know, and they say household 6, you know, happy wife, happy life. So, you know, I lost that debate, but I really wanted a dog, and I really wanted it to be kind of like my service dog. I needed that. And so I didn't get my dog, and it was very disappointing. Long story short, so I'm doing the veteran stuff and going to support groups. So I went to the Guitar for Vets, ended up in the writing group, and then I started a golf support group for veterans through the VA hospital in Loma Linda. Got that running, and that was with Ted. Ted was our counselor. He and I started that program, and that's still functioning today. So my daughter got pregnant with her first kid. And she's working full-time as a physician. I mean, you know, she's a hospitalist. She's working crazy hours, saving lives. And so she was, what do you call it? It's like when you have a real difficult pregnancy, like a troubled pregnancy. There's a phrase for that. I don't know. High risk. Yes, that's it. She was a high-risk pregnancy. So about a couple months into her pregnancy, she was bedridden. She was off her feet. She was bedridden. She had 2 Shih Tzu dogs. She couldn't even take care of herself barely, let alone 2 dogs. So I get a call one day. I said, Dad, can you come over and get my 2 Shih Tzus? It'll only be a couple months. Don't worry. Get me through the pregnancy. You know, it'll be okay. So I drive out to get the 2 dogs. I get there. I kid you not. So they're 2 Shih Tzus. You know, they're adorable dogs. I might have let me see if I got a picture. I mean, well, I won't go looking for it, but I have pictures of that dog. I have more pictures of my dogs than I do of my grandkids. I mean, that's how close I am to these dogs. So getting back to, where's Claire? Okay. I show up to pick up these 2 dogs. These 2 dogs are wearing diapers. Like infant diapers with their little tails wagging. I'm like, what planet is this? I mean, dogs with diapers? So my daughter never trained them because she was always working in the hospital. And one was a youngster and the other was a little older. The older one was potty trained, but the other one was not. So I'm picking these dogs up in my car. I got the diapers, and I'm like, I don't know what to make of it. So my daughter, a couple months, pregnancy, so she has her kids. It was difficult births and all that. So these dogs are with me, and I'm retired now, so I have time to take care of these dogs. So it took me about 4 months, but I trained those dogs to potty training. So that was a mission, and I literally took that dog out like every 15 minutes. All day long. So I just trained her, and she got potty trained, and everybody's happy, no more diapers. So long story short, just through the power of observation, these 2 dogs running around with their antics, they're crazy Shih Tzus. I mean, they're from China, Tibet. I mean, they're just, there's a million videos about Shih Tzus on YouTube, and you want to crack up, look at these videos, because people are fanatical like I am about these dogs, and they do the funniest things, and they're on videos. It's hilarious. And but just by the powers of observation, these dogs gave me so much material. I started keeping the notes. And those notes in my little phone turned into little stories. I ended up writing 50. I have over 50 stories written. I could probably have another 50, but I got to the point where I kind of stopped creating them to move into writing these other books. So this is the first one. And those are my 2 grandsons, and my whole family's in this book as far as cartoons. And I had the illustrator. Well, I kind of recruited my illustrators from community colleges because I'm on a fixed income as a retired guy. I don't have a tons of money to go pay somebody top dollar to do illustration. So I go find college kids because they generally will work, for less money. And by the grace of God, through the vet center, it's Chafee, a former Marine veteran contacted me and said, I'll do your book. And I wasn't really paying a lot, and it is a beautiful book. And I had an acquaintance of mine, Emmy, is won an Emmy for doing this kind of thing, and he actually told me, he says, this is very good quality. And this is a guy that's won like Grammys and Emmys and not Oscars, but just all that other stuff. So that one, and then this was another baby picture book. I kind of tied my golf stuff to the kids stuff. That's my son when he was a baby. And then this one's completed now, and the next one to come out, Claire Digs to China, because one thing about the Shih Tzus, they're always digging. They're always digging. So I came up with Claire Digs to China. So that whole story, she digs to China, finds Belle, who's the other dog that used to have the diaper, and brings her back, and they have adventures. So all my kids' books have a moral of the story. They teach the kids a lesson, like a life lesson. And this one's like about human equality, because how America dog and a Chinese dog get along. So I have other kids stuff. I'll go to the other one. What? Oh man, I didn't shut that out, did I? I lost my image. That's when us older guys get on computers, man. That happens a lot. I said, oh, I just erased it. Like where'd that go? Let me see if I can get that back. Book covers. See if it'll open up. Okay, I do that a lot. I do others. Where is it? Well, anyway, I have Claire Meets the Service Dog, and that one's completed. And Claire celebrates Veterans Day, and that one comes out on Veterans Day this year. So those are my kids' books, and that's how it came to be, and it's just from powers of observation. So, taking you. All right. So that I got up to doing podcasts. Okay. So part of the how-to book thing is like, how do you get started? How do you get into this and self-publishing and all that, and get a traditional thing. And even if you get a traditional publishing deal, unless you are a A-list celebrity or literally a New York Times top seller, they don't do really much to promote your book, and they don't do anything for you to promote it. Okay, if you're an A-lister, yeah, they'll fly you all over and pay your fees, and all those expenses do come out of the back end, by the way. But if you're like us, you're on your own. And even if you get a traditional deal, and they might get 10,000 books out there, but of which you get a little piece of it, not a big piece. Any promotion, it's up to you. So, everything I read, and I've read dozens of books on how to do this, dozens of books. And I think I cite them in my how-to book, as references. Everyone says you got to go social media. You have to do social media. That's the only way you can get ahead as a self-published guy. I didn't even know how to spell social media when I started this. I mean, what? I'm an old dude. I mean, when I started in the military, we didn't have computers, And so I got with a consultant, learned a little bit about it, and I still don't really have a handle on the social media, but I do have a handle on YouTube. And it's been said that YouTube is kind of replacing websites, because you don't really need a website so much anymore. But if you have a YouTube channel, that's where people go, and it's visual, and you can see it, and you can comment, and it's more interactive, and it's more popular. And with a filmmaking background as an undergrad, I didn't really do anything with filmmaking my whole life. I just went about my military career and did what I did. But I had the fundamentals down so that I knew the basics of lighting, composition, and a little bit of editing. So, but again, I hadn't done it for 40 years. So the YouTube thing to me was kind of natural. And I was doing podcasts, because just like other veteran groups, like kind of like speaking engagements like this. I do a bunch of them, and so veteran podcasts, usually centered around veteran stuff or writing stuff. And then I got in the habit of, I got a Zoom account and I started recording this stuff. And then I took it a step further and I started making books from the podcast. And that's where stuff like this came out. This came out of a podcast I did with, he's a CPO, Chief Petty Officer, Navy, retired, and he was a Purple Heart recipient. And he runs the PTSD Foundation of California. And so he has a podcast called Vet Vision, Combat Vet Vision. Yeah, Combat Vet Vision. And Aaron Siebert, wonderful man. You can go on YouTube, he's done hundreds of these podcasts. And he's starting to get a following. So I did his podcast, one of the best interviewers I ever been interviewed by. And I captured it and put it in a book. I said, you know, this is so powerful and so many people are going to watch this video. I want more people to have access to it. And because he and I, you know, we're talking, mostly we talked about like PTSD and how to deal with it and how to transition from a military guy to a civilian. And that's kind of what the book about. It's a short read. It's only like, I think it's only about $10 on Amazon. It's, you know, it's not too expensive, but it's for veterans, you know, by veterans. So I did a couple of these books, and that's how I got into the self-help books. And then let me see if, yeah, the military school, that's another self-help book, but it's more for like youth trying to make decisions on whether they want to go to the military, to the civilian, you know, vocational school, whatever. So what I've done is made videos from all these books. And, you know, a lot of them are different interview stuff. So I wanted to show you this is another self-help book. This just came out on March 30th. And then that was based on another interview I did with a PhD candidate, and that one, I think you saw the lady interviewing me. This is based off of that. So, you know, it's another way of creating product. Okay, the big books, you know, they take time to do, but what I read in my research is like the successful authors between big projects do little projects that are easier to crank out, like these self-help books or podcast books. You can make them very quickly. You put them out, because what that does, from a marketing perspective, it keeps you out there. What's he bringing out next? You know, like these guys, I'll tell you, they're probably sick of my emails, because I got an email every month or twice a month with something coming out, either a video or a book or something, a lecture. I always got something going on, but it didn't happen overnight, and it just progressed. So now it's kind of crazy. But the social media, how I started that. Again, I didn't know anything about social media. So what I did was, you know, I wasn't a wealthy guy, but I saved my pennies, and for my first YouTube video, what I did, and I already had about 14 or so books, 15 books. I hired a production company, okay? And it was through a friend who they had videotaped their wedding, and I could tell these guys were pros. They knew what they're doing. They had the Steadicam and all this lighting. They were good. So I had a connection with the company. So I think they gave me a good break on the price. But I hired a production company to do a full-blown Hollywood kind of video about me talking about my books. And that was my first video. So it's professionally made, professionally edited, sound, all that. So that was my first exposure to YouTube. And that was my most views, thousands of views on that video. It's just a well-made video. And I found that the people out there, they tend to gravitate to the longer videos, because they find out more about your personality, and you know, it's, instead of the quick, they want to get to know you. And that's how I started it. So I got off to a good start with a professional production crew. And I did have to pay some money for that. But, you know, sometimes you get what you pay for. And in that case, I was very happy. So what I did was, and this was a tip I read somewhere, that, but I mean, I kind of did it on my own, and then I read about other people doing it. So I had this big 20-minute video, and I was talking about each of the books in the video, like 15 different books. Well, what I did was that gave me 15 segments that I could chop up. So I got like triple mileage out of the one production shoot. And it's at the point now with that company, they don't even want to take my call anymore because I'm always asking for stuff, you know. And so from that one video, I have probably 20 videos, you know. So what I did was I mapped out the whole year. I got a spreadsheet, and I base it on historical dates, like today's Armed Forces Day. I got a video coming out on VE Day. I got a video coming out on D-Day. Of course, on the 4th of July, there's one coming out. Veterans Day, I always have something coming out, and or a book release on those key dates. So that's kind of how I've developed all these videos and stuff. So now I got my little, you know, sound thing and camera, and I figured out how to do it on my own. And I do my editing, I just do all that stuff. I just all self-taught. And the thing about YouTube's cool, you can learn about anything on YouTube. They have videos on doing anything, from changing the oil in your car to fixing your refrigerator, or, you know, doing YouTube videos. I mean, they're out there. And then one of my lectures I had, they were asking me, how do I do this video thing, this YouTube stuff? And I said, I'm actually writing a book for writers on how to do a YouTube video for writers. But I haven't gotten it finished yet, but it's one of my, in the hopper projects, so. But that kind of is my long and short story. I mean, I was gonna take you, we'll get up to these guys. Okay, so this is my, let me see, where are you? Here we go. This is where I ended up, and this is where I am right now. This is the memoirs from Operation Iraqi Freedom. So all those combat journals, after years of editing, re-editing, I did an initial release, pulled it off the shelf. I wasn't happy with it. And I spent like another year re-editing it and fine-tuning the whole process. Had proofreaders proofread it, making sure the grammar is correct. And I got this as good as I can get it without getting any more professional help, because I about went broke with proofreaders. They're expensive. But I have since got a Grammarly account, and that Grammarly, I use it to death. It's for grammar checking and spell checking. It can also confuse you because it has ways of helping you write, change your words. I don't do any of that business. I just use it for grammar, punctuation. And there's one is for getting your point across more effectively. I might look at that. You have to do it by paragraph, so it takes a long time. But I'll never use all their suggestions. I might change one or two words in a paragraph, and that's it. But Grammarly, you know, I've basically replaced proofreaders. And my proofreader, that's what he told me. He had to go get like a regular job, and because people weren't hiring him. Because there's other programs too, but that's what I use. That's what Andreas, our mentor, that's what he uses. And so I created this, and this whole project, this idea I started about 2 years ago, and it took me that long to put this all together. And I designed it so that the last book would be released on the 4th of July, the 250th birthday, right? And so I backwards plan, each month a book comes out on a key date. Like the 19th was first day, first firefight, and we were at the LA Times Festival of Books that day, and that also is the shot heard around the world, Lexington and Concord. So the start of the Revolutionary War. So, again, a key historical date. I don't consider myself a military historian. I consider myself more of a history geek. So it's just a hobby. So each one of them has a pertinent date. The first one came out on my birthday. That was a big date, But it's also the same day as, was it the Follies with the Alaska Purchase? Stewart's Follies. Yes, sir, Stewart's Follies. And that came out on my birthday, so that was a historical date. So anyway, so that's where we got with this. So From Home to Hell, that's National Guard Battalion, called up, mobilized, trained. You go to your home station, you do SRP, soldier readiness preparation. That's when they're checking your medical, you get your will and all that in order, and you pass the muster. You pass the muster, you're in, okay? And then we went to Fort Lewis, Washington, initially for months in the winter. Ugh. Washington State in the winter. Then we went to Yakima, Washington for live gunnery training. Then we went to Fort Irwin National Training Center, where we did a MRE, mission rehearsal exercise. We were the first unit to do that. It was a whole brigade, combat brigade. And from there we on a slow boat, we shipped our equipment to Kuwait. We finished our validation with Big Army that validated our brigade and battalions to mobilize. You have to pass the test before you go down range. And so we did. It's interesting because, in that first book, we almost didn't pass the muster, and it's in that book. You can read about it. It's quite an interesting little sub-story there. But so we ended up at the end of part one in Kuwait. Staging our equipment, getting ready to go over to Burma into Iraq. Number two, first day, first firefight is exactly as the name implies. That's when we crossed over to Burma, went into Iraq, MSR Tampa, main supply route Tampa, and boom, we got hit right away. So that tells that little story. And that book ends, unfortunately, with our first killed in action. So that was a tough one. And on patrol, that's when I was the XO as a major, and then acting battalion commander for about a month. And that's me going out with the troops, the infantry guys, and kicking in doors and doing infantry stuff. And that's why it's on patrol, because I would do that kind of stuff. Our commander would not do that stuff, so I volunteered and did that stuff. And then we got burden of command. That's my kind of personal story. When I was acting battalion commander, we had a couple of KIA under my watch, and it tells you about what I went through there, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, and working through those kind of issues. Of which the whole writing process has done wonders for me and a lot of my fellow vets. The whole process of writing the written word is therapeutic for me, and got me through some rough patches in life, and has really improved my whole outlook on life, So that's my story. Whispers of Mutiny is, there was whispers of mutiny. Like I said, we had a challenged commander, and that's about as politely as I could put it. You want to know about him and that story, read the book. Read the leadership book, or any of these things. You'd be really shocked about how somebody so incompetent could make it so far to the top. But part of the any organization, you have a certain thing, like a good old boys club, and cliques and prejudices and such, and I'm sure you've all seen that in your travels and experiences. Well, the Army's has that. Corporate America has that for sure, and then the National Guard has that, and it's even a smaller section, and it really was a good old boys club, particularly back in the Vietnam era, and they had the long hair and smoking the marijuana. Back then it was really like kind of a joke, but they've come full circle through the Desert Storm and training. And when I was in Iraq, over 50% of the fighting force in Iraq was National Guard and reserve component troops, more than 50%. So I think they've come full circle and have held their own in combat, and I was pretty proud to be part of them. And so and then at the end of the book, we deploy home. We had 1,000 soldiers, all but 5 made it back, and the 5 that didn't, those books and all these books are basically dedicated to those 5 and the 1,000 that I deployed with. So that's my purpose. That's why I'm here. And I believe that, by the grace of God, I was spared. And I think, honestly, one of the reasons why I was spared was so that I could share their story and have their legacy live on. and so that's why I'm here, and that's basically my story. Yeah. So, yeah.
Everybody, if you'd like to join in a round of applause.
Oh, thank you. My goodness. Yeah.